Yay Networks.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Life with the Lindsays. My name is Heather.
And what's up, yo? This your boy, Cornelius.
Yes, I'm so excited you landed on our podcast, and your life is pretty much going to be changed.
Yes, man. If you're looking for something real, relevant, and authentic, then you landed on the right place. Hey, here's the thing. We about to get going right now, so y'all tune in, buckle up, sit back, get ready for the show. Here we go.
Yo, what's up, good people? It's Cornelius. Welcome to Life with the Lindsays. Yo, first off, let me start off by saying that some things are going to change. You are going to, you may see a new name pop up with the podcast, but just know that it's just some new things have just kind of being done behind the stage, and nothing to worry about, nothing to be concerned about, but just kind of restructuring and kind of rephrasing and also kind of rebranding too. So, you can, in the next couple of weeks, you may hear us talk more about that. You hear me talk about more about that. You may see some more guests come onto the show, all that kind of stuff, and just see some new things that's going to be going on. But just know that, if you don't see Life with the Lindsays pop up anymore, that it's okay. It's completely fine. You can click on the show. You can still be about that work and still go to it. So it's been a couple weeks since you've gotten a show. You've gotten a show from us. It's been some time has passed, and man, it's been crazy. it's been absolutely crazy. And when I reached back out to my podcast agency, and I'm like, we sat down and we kind of talked about me taking a break and all that kind of stuff, and what that looked like. I'm very thankful for them because they were very much on board with needing that break and recognizing kind of where I was and recognizing where I needed to be and where I needed to grow. And then same way with my wife and so on and so forth, and just knowing that I had to take a step back. And not only that, for those individuals who have even noticed, I haven't been on social media for, about a month or so. And it's been absolutely amazing. But I think one of the things that I had to finally come through and really understanding is that I'm an addict, and I've been an addict for a long time. And I know, like Christian folk, when you hear that, the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh my goodness, what you've been addicted to. You know what I mean? But, I'm not trying to get into all that right now, but nevertheless, I've been an addict for a long time. And because I have been, a user, then I have, operated in self-sabotage, operated in a lot of different, actions and things like that have not been indicative of, the person whom I wanted to be and the person I know I can be. And, there's something that ultimately, I'll share with you guys. We'll share with you guys, at a later date and stuff like that. Just some new developments in our life and stuff like that. But I think coming to that conclusion, it has been so easy to mask addiction, especially with religion, because I don't feel as if religion does not do anything to really resolve or really heal addiction. Religion is just a good cover to kind of just cover it up. It doesn't, it may expose it, but it does not do anything to actually deal with it, to actually heal from it. And because of that, with religion and just kind of being in the religious space for a while, I just really never took the time to just come to that place of powerlessness and just say, you know what, this is what I am. This is what it has been. And this is the truth. And I cannot run from the truth. And I cannot run from, what that truth is. Like even when it came down to social media, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to be on social media. It's going to be okay. It is what it is. And I knew over and over again, like, this is not good for me. This isn't good for me. It's kind of like, if you're in a cage with a bear, and you're fighting a bear, and you're looking at the bear and you're like, you know what? Yeah, the bear is hurting. Like the bear is cutting me, and he'll growl every now and then, but he's asleep now. The bear's fine. I'm okay. I'm okay. And everybody's like, no, you should probably come out of the cage. You're like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. That's kind of how it was with my relationship with social media and other things. It was like, I know the danger and the detriment that it causes. But the problem is that I don't want to come away from it because of this idea, this fantasy of what would it be if I lose it. But not realizing that I've exposed and just opened up my whole life to a whole different world that I don't believe that God ever intended for me to have. And it's important for me. I'm not saying anything with you. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm not saying, oh, this is supposed to be a great revelation for you. I'm just talking about me for just for a moment. But what was important for me to do is step back and say, you know what? I have to finally break away from some things, and I have to make some real life changes in my life just so I can heal, and just so I can come to a sense of a place where healing is needed, and where healing is where God wants to touch, and I got to let the light shine on those places that have just been darkened. I feel like that is so important. And so, not being on social media is like, man, like I finished more books than, I have in a long time. It was crazy. So my first week off of social media, I would always say, oh my goodness, I would tell people all the time, like, oh, I'm not really on my phone a lot. I'm not on my phone a lot. I'm not on social media all the time. I'm not on social media all the time. My first week away from social media, I get a notification on my phone that says that my screen time was down 48%. And I'm just like, I looked at that for a moment. I just had to think about it. I'm like, yo, 48%? So you're telling me I've been spending all this time from in my head trying to rationalize it, saying, oh, but I'm helping people, or, oh, but I'm doing this, or, oh, but I'm doing that. But in actuality, I'm scrolling. I'm opening up my eyes to things. I'm opening up my heart to things. I'm doing all these things that are just countering not only who I desire to be, but it's ruining my creativity because I'm not thinking clearly. Our brain is so powerful, and we come up with all these different creative activities throughout the day, all these different creative activities, all these different things that God, he downloads all of these witty inventions inside of us, and he gives us all of this wisdom, right? And then we're thinking ourselves, like, we wake up like, oh my goodness, that was a great thought. That was a great thought. And then we get on social media, or we get around people who may be doing, somewhat the same thing. And then what happens? It's like the creative idea that God gave you, you begin to downplay it. You begin to dumb it down because you're like, oh, somebody else already done that. Like, you have that book that God gave you in your head, and you're like, oh my goodness, this book is going to be amazing. You're thinking, I can write this book. I can write this book. And then you get out there and you start looking at everybody else's life, and then you see somebody who just released a book, and the book may not be anything like yours. It may not be anything like yours. But you look at it and you're like, you know what? Well, it has some of the same components, and look how well they're doing with the book. And oh my goodness, look at their book cover, and look at this and look at that. So that creative idea that God gave you, is slowly diminished because now you're thinking to yourself, it will never live up to the same expectations that book did. So now you're limited in your creative ability and your creative experience because of the experience that you have and like what you're allowing into your world. I just realized that my world has been toxic for a really long time. And I think coming to that conclusion has been, I would love to have said that I have been at that conclusion before, but never to the depth of my reality. Am I there now? I think, I forget, it's A.W. Tozer. He said something, and I won't say it exactly how he said it, but he said that I have yet to believe that God can use a man greatly before he breaks him deeply. And I always heard that quote, and I thought that quote meant that, God is going to do like this spiritual surgical work inside of this man or inside of this woman. And because of that spiritual surgical work, then that person will now be ready to be utilized for spiritual activity. But I don't believe that that's what A.W. Tozer was saying at all. That is so much deeper than that it takes us to true soul care, where it has to be proper alignment between the body, the mind, and the spirit, where all three, it has to be interconnectivity. And he's saying that until you have experienced something deeply, until life has hit you and brought you to a place of powerlessness. You have no other choice but to trust. You have no other choice. And for those individuals out there who, you're hearing what I'm saying, and maybe this may be touching you deeply. And now the word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. I want to let you know that, so right now I have 3 different therapists. I'm working with 3 different therapists right now. And, it's a lot of things that are just finding different avenues and ways to be able to help me, which can be very, 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 very important. But your brain is constantly going, is constantly improving and problem solving mode. And you have all these different challenges that you're facing in life right now. And you're trying to find out your own solutions. You're trying to add language and verbiage to your own pain. And you don't know how to do that. You just know this is the way I feel, but you don't know if that is a phantom feeling. You don't know if that feeling is a reality. You don't really know what that feeling is because you don't really know how to put language to it. Or maybe you may be out there and you don't have anybody who can really listen to you. And I'm telling you, therapy, it helps. You may have heard us talk about it over and over again, but therapy helps. It helps. If you're at that place right now where you're like, I don't know if I want to keep going, I'm telling you, give therapy a try because BetterHelp is the best option. The fact that it's convenient, the fact that it's accessible, the fact that it's affordable, the fact that it's entirely online, that means you don't have to go inside of some lobby and sit there and wait and see what are these people thinking about me? You don't have to do any of that stuff. This stuff is online. And the fact you can get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey, when you want to become a better problem solver, you want somebody to really understand, where you are, and you want to become a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. I want you to visit betterhelp.com/Lindsay's today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Lindsay's. So go to BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lindsay's, LINDSEYS, not AYS, LINDSEYS, but it's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lindsay's, LINDSEYS. But anyway, going back to that point I was seeking to make, A.W. Tozer, he came up with this, he said this, and he said, I find it hard to believe that God can use a man greatly without first breaking him deeply. And again, like I said, I thought that the whole idea of the man being broken deeply was that there was this spiritual surgery that was kind of done in this person. It was completely painless, because that's what we want. We don't want to, when we think about sacrifice, even in the Bible, we're we don't really want to be sacrificed. Come on, Jesus already climbed on the cross. I don't want to climb up on the cross. I don't need pain. I don't throw pain in this with it. But I think it's at that place that A.W. Tozer was talking about where the depth of brokenness inside of your soul, it brings you to a place of powerlessness. And powerlessness illuminates acknowledgement. Because now I have no other choice but to acknowledge exactly where I am in my life. I have no other choice but to see exactly where I am and say, this is a problem. I have to deal with this. I have to deal with it. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. I can't throw, religious lingo over it anymore. I can't throw clothes over it anymore. I can't throw, anything else over it. I can't throw money over it anymore. I can't throw pretty pictures over it anymore. This is an issue. And if there's going to be progress, if there's going to be progression, then I have to deal with the issues that are at hand. And if not, then, it's like, well, I'm just going to continue living a lie. I'm just going to continue living in this form of false ego and false promise. Not even false promise, wrong word, false strength. Because we have a natural inclination to say, I'll figure it out on my own. I'll do it on my own. I don't need anybody else. I will figure it out on my own. And if we can be honest, bringing ourselves all the way back to where we're supposed to be, if we can just be honest for just a second, we have to recognize we can't do that. We cannot continue to go that way. There's there's an in-person treatment center, that I had to go to, where I had to go get help. And I needed that help. I got there and I slept for a day and a half because I didn't realize just how weary my soul was. But to just sit there and go to, session after session after session, like after these therapy sessions, like me having to go take an hour nap because like I'm talking about things that I've never talked about before. And I'm admitting things, and, I'm finally honest with myself, and I'm honest with the people who are around me. And I'm choosing to just own that sacred part of my life that I have just tried to just keep hidden, like those different compartments, those different things that you try just not to let everybody else know because they're just ugly places in your life. It's like that at that point that I just started to see, okay, this is where true healing can happen, because I got to a place of powerlessness. I got to a place where now I am broken deeply. And it's only in this place of pure honesty. It's only in this place of pure authenticity. It's only in this place of pure vulnerability that I can now say, okay, God, it's not that I desire to be used greatly, but if you desire to use anything, then my prayer is that you can turn, that you can allow for whatever that was supposed to be bad to be used for your glory, for your good. So it's a process. It's a process. And I think even taking a step back, I've had to, I said earlier, I've had to like rethink different stages and different parts of my life. I've had to rethink access to my life. I've had to sit down and ask myself, am I healthy enough for boom? Am I healthy enough for this? Am I mentally and emotionally healthy enough for this? And not that sense of, I think I am. Not in a sense of false self. I think I am. I think I can. Because, if I stay in that, my marriage can suffer. If I stay in that, I could suffer as a father. And my family suffers. But like really being honest with myself and saying, am I sure that I am healthy and vibrant enough for the activity that I claim is supposed to be good for me? And if I can be completely honest with you, I took a step back, y'all, and I was like, I was talking my wife, and she shares something with me. We're having a difficult conversation, and she looks, and we're talking about social media, and I told her, I said, I had gotten to a place where I looked at social media and I thought, well, if I'm not on there, then, at the top of the line, because you want to be the hero, right? It's like, well, I'm helping people. People are encouraged by what I post. So I'm helping people, or, and then I started, rationalizing, well, I'm helping people. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and all these things. And, if I'm not on there, then how will people know this? How will people know I have a book? How will people know I'm doing this? How will people know I'm working out? How will people know this? And then I went away, and went to my time of meditation, went to my time of prayer, got out my journal, which I've started back doing now, which is absolutely amazing. But I got back to that, and I said, you know what? I need to really, really, really get in, really, really hone in on this. And that place of prayer, the Holy Spirit said to me, he said, you've trusted in social media and everything else outside of it more than me. And I thought, so now I can't run. I'm at a place of powerlessness. I'm just like, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're right. I have. And I shared a story with my wife that the Holy Spirit brought back to my remembrance that really began to help me. It really began to help me, and it really began to bring things into perspective. It allowed for me to see just the error of my own ways. It allowed for me to see how the error of my own ways, how it started to divert me down completely different paths. I mean, heightening addictions and, heightening, my own level of thinking, and increasing pride and increasing self-indulgence and increasing ego. But we want to call it God, and I was just like, I can't continue down that path. I can't do that. And actually, I would actually love to share that story with you. I love to share that story with you. Before I share that story with you, I want to share this. So I'm very, very excited about Skillshare. which is just a sponsor of our show. And I mean, absolutely amazing. So, you probably thought for decades about how you wanted to get started doing something, how, you wanted to learn this new skill, how, you wanted to grow in an area. Well, here's the thing. It's never too late to start exploring your passion and how it could also become a profitable side hustle. Skillshare helps you level up your skills with curated classes covering everything from graphic design and hand lettering to web development, photography, and so much more. I know for me, there's an amazing class who's led by Kate. It's called Personal Productivity. 5 exercises to make your big goal a reality. It's almost like, you're getting like these curated talks that are specific to different areas that can help you to develop the skills to help you move forward. And you all know the old saying, you have not because you ask not. And then right along with that, we don't level up because we don't get the information that we need. But each Skillshare class is broken into bite-sized modules packed with actionable insights. You level up your e-commerce chops, your branding skills, your social media savvy, and more with new classes launched every single week. One affordable yearly membership fee unlocks unlimited access to as many classes as you want. You can keep learning on the go with the Skillshare app, which is amazing. So not only do they have an app, but you're paying one time, and that one-time fee, it unlocks all the classes that you need. So turn your passion into payday with Skillshare. Visit Skillshare.com/LWTL today to get your first month free. So that means you get your first month. Get in there and get some of those classes, get those skills up, get what you need. But again, that is Skillshare, SKILL share SHARE.com/LWTL. Again, Skillshare.com/LWTL. So I want to kind of share that story with you that I share with my wife, which took me back to that place of faith that I had. And this was the time I wasn't on social media. I had dropped out of college. I was at the University of Georgia, and I had gotten saved. And I was driving an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes, almost 2 hours back and forth to church. On Sundays, Sunday I went to both services. I went to Wednesday night Bible study. And I was also there for 5 a.m. prayer on days they had it. And then Saturday morning prayer at 10 o'clock a.m. And that was just very important to me. I've never been real big on like, let me just watch it online, because there's something about being in the same place, which I don't, I have my own feelings about online stuff now, but I kept going back and forth. But nevertheless, I got to a place where I started reading my Bible before I was more than I was reading my textbooks. So I'm like, God, I need your help. I believe that he told me, to leave college. I left college. And so, at that time I was a server working at a restaurant. It was like this restaurant. It's called Old Charlie's. Never been to Old Charlie's, but it's the Old Charlie's is located in Fayetteville, Georgia. I don't even know if it's still there, but I went there, and that was a place where I worked. I was praying one day, and I went to 5 a.m. prayer. This was during a prayer and fasting time. I don't know if it was a conference or what it was, but anyway, they opened up the chapel at 5 a.m. every morning, and so I was there at 4:30. I'd walk inside at 5 o'clock, and I prayed. I remember going back to the car, and I remember sitting in the car, and I have out my journal. I'm like, okay, God, whatever it is that you want to say, download it. Let me write it. And I'm sitting there, and the Holy Spirit says to me, he says, in 3 days, I'm going to show you my glory. Now, and whenever I know God is speaking to me in this way, like I am confident of what I heard. And I wrote it down exactly how he said it. In 3 days, I'm going to show you my glory. And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, well, this is pretty cool. Like, okay, we're going in a great direction. Like, this is good, because I actually need to see something, because my faith is way down. So that was a Friday. I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, because I'm analytical and I can be overly technical. So I was thinking to myself, okay, well, so you say 3 days, are you saying Friday was included in the days? You're talking about Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Or are you saying that is Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Like, what are you thinking? So anyway, all day Friday, I'm just like, okay, well, it is what it is. And Saturday, I wake up, I go to prayer at church. And after that, it was like an intercessory prayer meeting. I did that. And I kind of helped them move chairs and stuff like that after that. And then Sunday, I got to church, and I'm like, okay, God, this is day 3. So I showed up early for church, and I'm like sitting in a parking lot, and I'm like, well, maybe God's going to have somebody speak to me and say something to me, or something's going to happen in the parking lot. And I get out and I go into church and I go to first service, and, I pray for people and stuff like that. Nothing happens. So I'm like, okay, cool. We have a whole nother service. I'm thinking maybe the pastor's going to speak to me. Something's going to happen. Go to second service. I'm still in expectation. We're in praise and worship, and the sermon goes forth, and, people are going down, getting prayed for and all this kind of stuff. And church and sermon ends. And I'm like, well, nothing happened. And I'm like, well, it's going to happen. I'm walking back to the car, and I'm like, if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen at church, because I don't really see God doing anything else outside of this place. It's a huge church. It's going to happen here. I walk back to the car. I get back in the car, and I'm like, well, you know what? Praise the Lord. God's still good. It is what it is. Get back in the car. I drive home, and I was just tired. I was emotionally drained. I laid down on the bed, and I went to sleep. I woke up probably about 7:00 that night. While I was taking a shower, my phone rang, and I picked up the phone. It was, at that time, was my pastor. And he said to me, hey, hey, Cornelius, how you doing? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing? And he said, well, I'm doing fine. He said, I just finished praying. He said, and I believe God told me that you're supposed to work for me. And I said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I think you miss God, because I don't want to work for a church. And he just kind of got silent. He's probably making a face behind the scenes, knowing him. But he said, all right, well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. He said, but just show up tomorrow and he said, bring a notepad and a pen. He said, and wear a suit. He said, make sure work starts at 8:00. Make sure you're there before 8. And I remember hanging up the phone, and I was like, this is great, because I was looking at that time. Even though I was working as a server, I actually got fired from the job, because the girl who I was dating at the time, she was going through some things, and so she had to make a emergency trip to Florida. And there was no way I was going to let my girlfriend at the time, I was going to let her drive down to Florida by herself. Or even she was going with her mom and her sister. I'm going to let her drive down there by herself. Like, I'm not doing that. So I called my boss, and I was like, hey, she has to go down here, and I'm going to drive her down. And his words to me he was like, Cornelius, if you're not on this floor at 10:00 a.m., you can find you another job. And I remember telling him, I was like, well, let me start looking for another job then, because I'm taking her to Florida. And so I did all that. So I got fired from the job. So here I am. I'm living in my parents' house. I'm believing, God for money to pay bills and stuff like that. I'm looking for another job. And then that Sunday, that phone call was like, well, here, I'm going to give you a job. Not to give you a job, but give you an opportunity. Give you an opportunity that, ultimately turned into me, having an expansive view of ministry, to see a lot of things that I probably would not have seen, in any other type of scenario, which I think really heightened my faith, because when we got started in ministry, my faith was already at a level of what I had seen. And that's typically how it goes. That's the reason why, kids that are exposed to more places and exposed to more things, they usually can do more because their exposure level. And I remember telling my wife that. I remember sitting back, and I was thinking to myself, like, you know what? There was nothing that I did that moved God in that moment. That God had already put it on the heart of the person he was going to talk to call me. It wasn't me having to post something. It wasn't me having to present myself. It wasn't me having to, be like, I need to be the one up front. Like David, it's like, I was David, and I'm David. I don't have to be in the lineup in front of the prophet for God to say, it's the one in the field. I don't have to. And because of my mentality and addictions and all that kind of stuff, because of that, I had always believed I need to be the one in the lineup. I need to be that one. I need to be in the lineup. I need to be up front. I need to be center. And that's not truth. That's not reality. At least it's not for me. Again, I'm not preaching this on y'all. I'm talking about me. So, like I said at the beginning, change is good. Change is good. Change happens for a reason. And change is good. And my only encouragement is that you hear this and you're able to recognize, some changes you need to make in your own life. And if there's any type of encouragement I can give you, it is stop lying to yourself. Just stop lying to yourself. And now, even in this space where I'm at right now, if I can be 100% honest with you, it's like I'm rebuilding my confidence to even believe that I belong anywhere to encourage anybody in his body. Like, I've been very encouraged by the story of Peter, after Peter, renounced Christ, 3 separate times. And then he stands up in Acts 2 and he preaches a sermon where people's hearts are pierced and says they want to change. I mean, they're asking him, so now what do we do? This is Peter. I mean, it's almost like, God, out of all the disciples, you chose the one who denied Jesus 3 times. Like legit. Are you kidding me? I look at David and how David committed adultery, had this baby. God said, this baby will not live. The baby dies. The people are afraid of David. He comes out, he tears his clothes, and he washes his hair, and he goes out and he goes right back in, has a baby by Bathsheba again, and they have a son. They have Solomon. It's like, I'm looking at this to say, you know what? God can still use it. You even think about Saul, a man who persecuted the church. I mean, the church was afraid of him. And then he has this cataclysmic experience with Jesus on the road to Damascus, where his eyes are blinded for 3 days. And it's easy for you to look at that and say, oh, his eyes were blind. His eyes were blinded because it's all illusion and it's all just kind of alluding to what's going to happen with Jesus Christ when Jesus goes to hell and all this kind of stuff. But you think about it, it's a place of powerlessness. Because the eyes are the light of the soul. And when we're at that place of true submission and true powerlessness, I believe that's when God can really shine through the most. I'm encouraged by those stories because I know that as terrible as I have been, I know that God can still use me. And I say I know that in saying that I'm learning and knowing that. I actually said to one of my therapists, I said to him, how can I believe that God can use me? And he looked at me and he said, well, Cornelius, let me be honest with you. He said, is there anybody out here that God can use? He said, you show me one person out here who thinks that they are worth using. He said, and I'll call them a liar to their face. He said, none of us are worth using. But it is, as the scripture says it is in our weakness that he is made strong. So I pray you got something out of this. I pray you can share this with your family, your friends. But again, in the coming weeks, if you see a new name pop up on the screen, we'll be talking about it and sharing that kind of stuff with you. Don't throw it away. Don't unsubscribe. Don't be like, oh, they left us, all that kind of stuff. You see some new branding, stuff like that. It just kind of is what it is. But just moving into a new season, moving into a new place. A change can be scary for some, but let me tell you, it's always good. All right. Love y'all so much. Make sure you share this with your family, your friends, everybody to subscribe. Make sure y'all kick it with us. God bless y'all. And also, if you're also listening to Be Honest will be discontinued. You can just come right here. So we're about to Be Honest anymore. There's no reason for me to have my same voice in 2 different places. So you can just come right here with us. All right. God bless y'all.